So we're
Oh,
back, and because I do believe that the last part that we just recorded was a good portion of commentary speaking about the creative process of Antlers, without, of course, feeding
mm,
directly into the more clickbait questions that are usually in the questionnaire. I do believe in this second try, this second attempt at hosting Alex Frost of Antlers, who is now in 2025 released two albums, one that's 16 tracks, the other Hypothermia, that is, pardon me, we
in
got
10 tracks.
10 tracks, 10 tracks,
Yeah.
and I will be doing separate, away from session, front to back listening sessions for both of these albums. I thought I already had one for Hypothermia up on Sean Cross, at least
Mm,
after the initial Crosscast. You couldn't hear my side of the conversation. You could only hear Alex. And it wasn't really out of a sense of, oh, you can only hear Alex, I'm not interested. It was more like, well, if you're going to be listening to a podcast, you want to hear both sides of the conversation. So if you can't, that's
yeah.
kind of goofy. It sounded like
Otherwise,
I
it just
couldn't
makes me
hear
sound like I'm
myself,
schizophrenic.
right? Honestly, it was so, I hated that shit so much. Like, I was like, yeah, people are going to think that Alex is schizo if I decide to upload this session. And this is 4.5 hours of him just essentially talking to himself. So I was like, yeah, well, we're going to try again at a different time, and bless them for their patience. But the same thing happened to our first attempt, Crosscast, with AZ
Mm.
local hardcore band Ripped Apart, or I think Ripped Out. Members also a butthole ectomy, which they seem to be, I guess, done for. They decided to split not too long ago. So now it's like, well, what the
Ah,
fuck? Like, what am I going to do with all that information? But the thing is, some of the members are also part of a slam band called Titanosaura. And that is a slam project, I do believe, with a female frontman, or a front woman, right? Female,
mm.
God damn it, front woman, front
You
woman.
know, from person?
Huh?
Personally, I just say vocalist. Like, I have a bit of a hot take, as it were, on this kind of subject, which I'm not going to go too much into. But like, kind of what I said before about like, if people only knowing the singer of a band, kind of like, I feel like if people kind of speak about, oh, have you seen this female fronted band? It always kind of plays out to me like a sideshow or a carnival, or like you're supposed to judge it differently, or you're
Right.
supposed to look at it differently, like like when they have like female skateboarding contests versus the male one, and people go, oh, she's really good for a girl. Like it's I feel like if you're going to listen to music, why would you listen to music where you go, oh, this music's really really good, and and especially for a girl, like I think you're either a good vocalist or you're not, or like, and your vocal style can be anything. You could scream and you can do anything, like if that's your sound, but you shouldn't be judged on gender or or kind of push that as the foreground to be like, look at us, we have this pretty girl out that's singing for us. It's just a marketing tool, and I'm like, if the music is good, then people enjoy it. If you put a girl in a hot pants and a bra on stage, then that's all you're selling. Then you failed the music.
Oh,
Like then like, you're just market salesman. Then essentially just out there just trying to sell windows, going, oh, look at this fancy like package.
right.
So like always be in the music. And if you are a front woman out there, trying to market yourself, remember to always kind of say, and this is Josh and this is Dan, and they are as important in this group as I am. Like, not just kind of like take the lead. I saw some female group recently where it was a very pretty girl, and then the three guys behind her were all in masks, and I was just like, it's a solo pop act. It's a new version of pop where the music doesn't matter. Everyone's there just to see the girl, and that to me is no different than going to a Christina Aguilera show or Britney Spears show where the music is just the backing and you're there to see this girl.
Yeah, no, I
And
agree.
and I get it in some aspects, like, but even if you look at somebody like Tobias Forge from Ghost, like even though all of his band is in a mask, he's in a mask as well. You know what I mean? Like he's unrecognizable. So even though they're not recognizable, he's also saying, well, I'm still part of this. And he has all the right. He writes all the music and he does everything. So, he has that right to kind of take precedence, but to almost have that respect for his people where he's like, you know, they're not going to know what you look like, and they're not going to know what I look like. So we're all in this together.
Right.
Still a good thing. But when you're just kind of like, look at me, I'm in a metal band and I'm a girl. Like, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, because I'm a massive Doom fan, and there are so many good Doom like bands, like you know, that are out there that are female fronted. You know, from Hanz to like, as one of my favorite ones that I always kind of go to, Electric Citizen, or Electric, yeah, one of them, Electric Citizen. Dead Witches, like there's a whole bunch of them. Faytooth, they're all amazing bands, but they're amazing bands. They're not amazing female bands. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah, no,
they make good music, and that should always be what's important.
I agree. And the thing is, like,
Sorry to rant, people.
no, like honestly, I think that's a very, very important conversation to have. And it's an important conversation to have because my interest, my niche fascination with bands who happen to be fronted by a lady instead of a guy is that you're more typically able to find with bands like Ginger, Spirit Box, Lucrezia, and Lowell. Those are the four that I would mention. You find yourself with a more vocal balance because those bands understand that you can't just be heavy all the time. Bands like Stabbing, nothing wrong with them. I've heard they've had some pretty bold takes, but I'm not here to spew about my opinion on their philosophies.
Have you heard Face Yourself?
Yes, you Face Yourself. Yes, that's another one for sure.
Oh, that's a female vocalist, but she's not. I mean, that's a vocalist like that, you know, and like you can call it what you want. Like that is an amazing vocalist, whether it was male or female. Like she's got a low, she's got the high. She's a brilliant person, and I think that's why whenever you see stuff about Face Yourself, it's never look at that female band, like, you know, because like I said, it almost kind of, as soon as you make a point about something particular, it almost makes it like a crux. Like you'd be like, well, they're really good. They're really good. They've got a girl singer though, but like, you know, they're still really good. You know, almost like apologetically for it. You don't have to. If they're a good vocalist, they're a good vocalist.
Yeah.
You don't have to at all. You just be like, this is a great band. Nightwish was a fantastic band. You know, she was a full-on opera singer, but everyone knew Nightwish. They weren't like, oh, it's Tarrier and her backing band. Yeah. Like, you know, it was, and that's because her voice fit the music. And there are certain bands that have just been around for like ages, and they don't need that tag of being a female fronted band. Nashville Pussy from back in the day, two female singers, and no one was ever like, look at this female band. They weren't. They were just a band, and that's what it should all ever be. It should just be about the music that you're creating, and if your instrument or tool is your voice, then that's what you use, like, not your looks.
Agreed. So keeping that in mind, it's like something that we were talking about last time, and really this was after session without releasing too much or disclosing too much. We had like a whole freaking post Crosscast conversation about my own project, about my own endeavors, and Blind Without Failures, right? That the intention for that was that one of the mechanics was a female singer, and that's really just only for the lullaby tone. You know what I mean? Like it's not to be clickbaity and just like, oh yeah, we're gonna be the next Spirit Box because we have a girl in the forefront? ? No, nothing like that. It's supposed to have the same relevance as DNA bands for what I'm trying to create in my main band project. Like Make Them Suffer, where whether it was Buchanile or, you know, the three individuals they've had so far, it's just supposed to add more of a lullaby tone to heavier music and balance it out a little bit. And that's all it's been about, is just balance. I don't really care.
For a composer-wise, like if you're writing a section where you go, oh, this bit would really like be added by putting a nice tuba in there. We want some of these like that. You wouldn't then go and say, well, how about this tin whistle or this piccolo? How about that? And, you know, we're going to try and make this piccolo do the sound of a tuba. You know, that you use the instruments that you have. If you want a deep growling sound, then find somebody who can give you a deep growling sound. Don't try and make your recorder or your clarinet try and make the sound of a tuba, and the same the other way around. Like, like you use the instruments that you have available, and if you are lucky to have a girl that in a metal band which is predominantly like low tones and growling and heavy midtones, then you should utilize the fact that that you have someone that can reach those notes that you wouldn't necessarily normally be able to reach. And that's how I always would go about using anything. So if I write a specific song and I think this really needs, as you said, like a more lullaby tone, then no, I wouldn't try and find like somebody with a deep gravelly voice to do it. I would find somebody who sounded ethereal and fairy-like to match the tone of what I'm trying to get. And I think this is why some bands, it forces it. There's people that have, vocalists who have a certain range, but they can't do certain aspects, and it's forced, and then people can hear the forcing of it more. More. There are certain bands, some big bands that are out at the moment. I don't know if you've seen the videos of the E happening from a certain. Yeah, like a great guy. Like it's amazing, but it's reaching for tones that like it shouldn't necessarily. I don't know if it's supposed to be going for like a like that more sound, but just from a musician aspect of it, like when I have an idea for a section, I'll go this. I want nice built brass on this. But if I didn't have brass available, I would simply utilize what I have to then find something of a different measure that would also fit. I wouldn't force, because something like into it just because I have it. It's something. Sometimes you don't need it.
For sure. So, without taking too much more time speaking upon the idea of what makes female-fronted metal bands, I guess, less clickbaity, right? It's time that we learn a little bit more about you and maybe what predates Antlers for you and predates existence for you. And this is just us wanting to get to know Alex Frost a little bit better, the man behind the Hans Zimmer project of metal, really. This is us wanting to make amends as well for our apparently schizophrenic session earlier this year in February.
Yeah.
So really the same way we did before, sir. Maybe you wanted to polish up on your commentary from before. Maybe you were like, oh, that was shitty. I could have done that a lot better. Who knows? This is your then second opportunity to go ahead and tell us about your journey as a musician, everything relevant along the way, maybe projects that predated Antlers, and then the moment, the very split second that you started Antlers. Take it away.
Well, I've always, like everyone else, you kind of get into music a certain way. When I was a teenager in the late 90s, as it were, I was really into like skateboarding, and it was very, very influenced by the hip hop kind of scene. And even back then, there was a bunch of tracks, like not necessarily rap tracks, but hip hop tracks that were lo-fi that you'd always find that kind of went with skate videos. And some of them always, they were almost folky, but had this kind of beat to it. And I always found myself liking those kind of ones there. And I was just lucky enough to be in a house where we always had one of those shitty pianos, that have like DJ 1 on it, and it'd be like do, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'd play around with that. But really, these were kind of things that just shaped where I would think. Generally, the whole thing started was when I was 12. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a proper horror film. So back in those days, we used to have VHS players. And with the VHS tapes, you could put in, there was an option where you could press pause on the remote and then press a button and go frame by frame, very slowly, as it goes across. So I came down downstairs one night because I couldn't sleep, and my dad was watching Alien, Ridley Scott's 1978, 79 movie. And it's an amazing film, but my dad was really kind of like, well, I can't really let him watch it because he's going to go, get nightmares. So we watched all the way up to the very pivotal, like John Hurt chestburster scene. And what my dad did was something that he didn't realize was going to really change my way of thinking forever, for the rest of my life. So he paused the movie, and he was a big movie buff himself. He loved watching, listening to director's commentaries. He had bunches of Fangoria magazine and all this kind of stuff. And he went through the scene very slowly and then played it. And he told me what was happening through every scene. He was like, now that's a fake body lying there. And what you're going to see next is this is going to be a blood pack dye come out. And then this is the director's hand coming out like this, like that. And he explained it all in such fluid, sense stuff to me that I was really kind of like, really? And so, because I hadn't seen the scene in its entirety. And then once the scene had finished, he went back and then went through a little faster. And he was like, there you go. So that's switched to a different camera. That's doing like that. She's going to make a scream now because she's going to have to pretend that this thing's coming out of him. And then he did it about 3 or 4 times. And then he said, and now what we do is we add special effects and music, and this is what you get. And then the scene played out in its entirety, but I didn't watch it for what was happening. I was watching it with art departments, actors, composers, directors, producers in mind. And once the scene had finished, I just turned around and was like, that's cool. And then from that point onwards I became kind of obsessed with horror because I found it to be the most kind of artistic of genres. I wanted to know who created Michael Myers or who did the design and how they did the killing for Friday the 13th. And it was really, I really looked at the art side of everything. And with all of these things, once I fell across Halloween, with its very iconic piano line done by John Carpenter, who also directed it, I then started tapping on the piano. And then I started to just learn by ear, all of these horror themes from The Fog, Halloween, Candyman, stuff like that. And I just started playing and playing and playing and playing. And that's kind of what really started me off on anything. I wasn't drawn towards guitars or drums or anything yet because everything that I heard musically that I liked was done through orchestral building. And most of the time, Philip Glass did Candyman, one of the most iconic theme, Helen's theme from that is so beautiful and so haunting. And the theme line from The Fog was remarkable. And then, so I got kind of lost in soundtracks for a lot of the time. And probably because they made such an impact. Because as soon as you hear that like that, you hear that, it transport you. You're in a slasher film. Michael's there, he's coming down the street with a knife in the hand, and I loved how that music. There's people that will listen to the Tubular Bells from The Exorcist, and they'll go, "Oh, I can't listen to it. It really freaks me out." Because the music, because suddenly their brain is filled with all of the fear that they had in them. So once I had that kind of going on, I just was practicing piano every day, and that, playing the Halloween theme turned into learning how to play Three Blind Mice. And that kind of I had to kind of take a step back and go, I need to learn how to play, so that I could start creating my own kind of things and learning chords and whatnot. And then it wasn't until later on that when I went to high school that I was like, I'd never seen the drums before. I'd never had the opportunity to play drums, but they had a drum set there that was in the music room. And I was like, well, I'll go in there and start. And it was shocking. It was shit. It was so much harder than I thought it was going to be. You just thought you could just bang around and stuff. And so then I became fixated on that, and I would go to the music room every day and just, do and I was and very much inspired by things I saw in movies. I think I watched the kid in Hocus Pocus get on his drum set and go and I was like, I want to learn how to do that. So movies were the big thing. Every time I would see something and I would be inspired by it. I saw it and was like, I want to be able to do that. So I kind of started making a collection of things, of instruments that I liked. And then back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't really many drummers around. People didn't really play drums everyone was in a band. but they were always the guitarist or the singer or the bassist, and nobody had a drummer. So I was kind of like, once word got out in the local kind of area that, oh, there's, Alex plays drums. I then got put into like several different bands. And I was just playing with them, and each of them had like a different style, but it was a bit too much to take on. So I ended up playing with a band called Animosity back in like 1990. Oh no, I don't know, 1999, something around like that kind of thing. Okay. And it was the first time. So I was first time I'd ever played live, and I shit myself, and it was really scary. And and I really did have a very bad time with playing live. It was, I didn't feel comfortable enough, like that I could be like Lars and give it that and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't give a fuck if you missed all the drums and hit the outcome. Like my brain was like, you have to be completely perfect. You have to do everything complete. You cannot miss time. You cannot fuck up. You cannot do anything. Probably the same way that I approach everything that I do now. Like I can't. My brain doesn't allow me to make errors or make mistakes. And I think putting that immense kind of like pressure on myself is what kind of like not burned me out the music scene there, but kind of like I started to have like panic attacks and stuff before going on stage, and I was like, man, I'm really not cut out for this kind of thing. It turns out I'm quite like shy with a lot of stuff. So that was kind of like the birth of where I started getting the piano side from, and like the more orchestral side of everything, because I would go back from a live gig and seeing a live band, and I would get back, and if I heard a melody or a tune I would like, the first thing I would do would just figure it out on the piano, and then I would just play it over and over and over and over and over, and until like I could do it where I would sit down and playing the piano and hearing those songs and stuff, like it was, it was easier, it was relaxing. And I'd watch Lord of the Rings, and I'd have to learn it.
Yeah.
So really, like, that kind of is where it all started. And then it had like natural progressions when I was in university in Cardiff. I played with a band called Bloodlines of Angels, another one called Bury the Witness, and there was a few bands that went on around there. One that was called Cromwell Street. I had an audition for Brutality Will Prevail, where I went to the thing and played, and I just don't think I was good enough, or I was like, I don't know what they were looking for. They were a bunch of like hardcore kids, and I was this like gothy metal kid. But it kind of kept my interest in music going. But unfortunately, that kind of like spiked when I started my tattoo apprenticeship, and that became my primary source of creativity, that I had to learn to draw and do that kind of stuff every day. So, but still, every time a new film would come out and it would have like a good theme song, the first thing I'd do is go and like play it. And I got lost in a lot of times during the early like 2000s, especially after like Killswitch Engage like dropped their Alive or Just Breathing album, and it was the first time anyone had really ever heard metalcore, as it was going to then grow to be, with My Last Serenade and stuff, that it spiked a whole new interest in like writing stuff, and then everyone had that riff that was coming out on every song that was being made. And it was a great time for music, and that led, and then I kind of like found myself. Well, I should say, bear in mind how I got into heavy music. Okay. Was I was listening to like fucking shitty EDM, because I didn't and lo-fi stuff while like when I was younger, and my dad was kind of the savior in this, where there used to be a magazine that was called like Demoralizer or Demolition or something which was a metal magazine. And if you remember back in the day, you used to get magazines that had free CDs that came on the cover, yeah, with like a bunch of different tracks on it. So this one happened to have Cannibal Corpse's had a Cannibal Corpse song. It had Oh, it'll come to me in a minute. But yeah, it had Nile on it. It had Dying Fetus, Kill Your Mother, Rape Your Dog. I think that was the song that was on it. The Cannibal Corpse song was Pounded into Dust.
Okay.
And then it had Nile on it. It had Deftones Lotion on it. It had a bunch of stuff, and I'd never really heard like metal like that. So in like 2007 or 2008 or something, I was like introduced to this like absolutely brutal like kind of like metal scene, which kind of like became my thing. So then I started listening to bands like Mortician and stuff like around that, because there was a lot of weird grindcore stuff back in the day. Like so when the new metal era kind of came around, and everyone was like saying to me, "Oh man, have you heard this new Slipknot band? They're so heavy." And then I would hear, "I felt the hate rise up," and and I've been listening to Cannibal Corpse for like the last 2 years. I was kind of like, really? And then people were showing me like System of a Down and Limp Bizkit and all this kind of stuff, and they were like, "Yeah, dude, listen to this song. It's so heavy." Down it, and it was like rapping, and I was like, I listened to like Unto Sebek by Nile like on the way over, and I was just like, I didn't quite understand like how people were like being like, "This is heavy." So it became my duty to then be that guy that was just like, "This isn't heavy music," and. And I still am to these days. Like I do take the music very seriously. I really kind of like give every band a chance and listen to what they do and what they offer. And if they make good music, they make good music. And it kind of just stayed that way for a long time. Like I always patted around, but I never had the ability to record music. I never had I couldn't ever afford a Mac or a computer or I'd left home. I was living in Cardiff. I was living in an attic, eating all day breakfast out of a 60p tin. Living up there, watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer on VHS. Like that was my life. Then I'd go to work at the local. It was Legends, but the skate shop. They changed to Extreme, but round the corner there was a Barfly. And so all the bands that were coming through, like Atreyu and 18 Visions and Avenged Sevenfold, and Every Time I Die and 12 Tribes, Still Remains, all of these bands I just walked around the corner and saw. And so like the music scene was very alive. And there was a few people in there that went on to do like good things. A bassist called Matt that was in Bloodlines of Angels with me, he went on and joined the bass in a band called Kids in Glass Houses, and who had a couple of big hits. Like they were very good, but everyone was there for the music and the scene. And during that time, I discovered a band called Abigail Williams that I was like, this band is phenomenal. Like I love, and then and then I realized later on that it was just a guy. Like they were a band, but it was a dude doing the whole thing. And so once I discovered that kind of stuff, I hadn't even reached black metal or something yet, because I was like, black metal is not heavy. I didn't get it. You know what I mean? I liked chugs. I liked roars. I didn't. I thought guitars that went it was tremoloing, but just. It didn't strike me as like heavy, and I was in my mindset where I was like, I need to listen to the heaviest music I can. And it wasn't really then until The Birth, which I don't know, you can kind of correct me on this, but really, I know it was probably a lot earlier, 2001, 2002, but for me, 2009 was really when deathcore really exploded out, and you just got all of these like bands coming out, Annotations of an Autopsy, and really, I know Whitechapel had been around, but I really thought that I really discovered Whitechapel in 2009. Devil Wears Prada came out with that like zombie EP, and they had all that very typical samples that were put in from movies that they were shotgunned into breakdowns, and I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I like it started to bring these two things together. And then there were certain elements that were in there where these blackened deathcore bands started coming out, where there was these elements in there. And by this time, I'd kind of listened to bands like Dimmu Borgir and Emperor and stuff that used a lot of orchestration in there, and I found myself being attracted more to that. But it was I was just busy tattooing and creating and working hard, and being involved in the music scene was just being as a punter. Somebody went to gigs and enjoyed the music, and but still all the time. I always had a little keyboard, at home that, whenever I'd see a movie, I would come back and the first thing I'd do would just be to play the melody of the theme song. And that's kind of like where I was through that whole kind of like period. I was just in South Wales, like, and very much in that big brandishing era of emo, post-hardcore stuff, where everyone was listening to Glassjaw and Under Oath and other bands like that. These were the big names. Even My Chemical Romance back in the day, and every girl and everyone had their hair down, swept across their face. You could only look at people through one eye that was like completely panda-eyed in black makeup, and it was a great time. It was a good time. Everyone just lived for the music. That was it. Like, and everyone wanted to be, everyone wanted to be part of it. They didn't just want to kind of see it. They wanted to do their own thing. And I was kind of lucky to be there with it. And then really kind of like I had some personal things happen. Me and my first wife split, and I moved away to Austria, about 10 years ago, and kind of lived out there. There's not really much of a music scene out there. There's not even a fucking venue for bands to play in where I was living. Right. You'd have to drive an hour and a half away to Munich to go to a place called Backstage to see like any local band that was there. But I did move into like a different kind of era then as the years progressed, and I started to really hone in on the things that I liked, and one of the things that I liked was kind of like the more riffing stuff, and so I had what I went through as my Doom era, where I went and got my motorcycle tests done because I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a Doom riding Harley dude, a Doom listening Harley dude. Grew the beard out, discovered Electric Wizard like everyone else, and then and then went through that whole kind of thing. And then that was when I really picked up guitar, because I was like, I can't play Doom on piano. I can't. So the only way I could play it would be to get a guitar, and so then I was sitting, that's when I really started playing guitar. And then I realized, wow, Doom is easy. Some of the songs are 9 minutes long with 3 chords. That's it. It's just, it was a good time. But yeah, and then through then, if anyone has actually tracked back through the metal archives online, you'll see that I released a full-length album under the title of Misery Wizard in 2018. And it was a 5-track single that measured up to an hour in length, and it was inspired by Electric Wizard, Monolord, those kind of more like melodic doom kind of things. I think it's still on Apple Music. I have it on my Apple Music, but it's a very different sound. But that was the first time I had experience with recording music, which was, and I was very lucky to have my friend Jay, who was there, who was basically like a support. He'd been singing in a band called The Bleeding Process, and then he'd done a lot of recording, so he was there. It was almost like a support network saying, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, you can fix this in post, you don't have to get that. And it was very, very, very good that he was there to talk me through, because once again I was kind of doing everything apart from I was working with a guy called Tom, who was the engineer on it, who was basically programming on all the drums and doing most of the work. And really, he should have got a lot more credit for that album than he did. But once again, it was just an album that was made and faded away. And then that was really the last that I kind of did anything for music for a long time, until my current wife, who I married last week, one Christmas, because she knew how much I loved music and how much I used to play to her. When we were living in separate countries, I would film myself playing piano for her and send it to her. And that she was blessed me with this iMac that I'm speaking to you on now. And I downloaded all the necessary things, and then I started with the idea of doing another Doom project. And the project was going to be called A Dying Horse. So, because I was like, I want it to be sad, slow, and heavy, and what else is sad, slow, and heavy than a dying horse? So I started writing a bunch of songs, and I wrote like 5 songs on the original GarageBand, not the Logic Pro X that I'm using now. And the sounds were fucking shit. Like, for my ears, it was amazing because it was my first time really. I had no idea how to record. I was using this to do all my piano stuff on, just like this. I had this little Akai MPK, so I was trying to get everything on there now, and it was just once again a whole learning process. And then once I then was like, oh, I have these songs made, I then went and off with my friend Joe, who I tattooed a couple of times, who was studying music in university, and he said, oh, let me do some recording for you. So I went once again to him, and then I went round this lovely guy called George. He's in a band called Spared an Endless Orbit, Spared by an Endless Orbit, who is currently live gigging and touring around. Their band is really, really good. If you like heavy metal, deathcore stuff, they're really good. And he had basically a full setup at his house to record to, and it kind of introduced me to all the new different kind of aspects, from Cubase to Reaper to Logic Pro, Native Instruments, Spitfire, and all the other kind of stuff that you need. And I didn't know anything about that. So we spent about 6 months recording Dying Horse stuff. But as the process started to go on, the sound started to really kind of change and take form, and it moved away from doom. And once again, I spoke to my friend Jay, and I sent him a song that was that I was like, oh, this is going to be a cool deathcore song. And then he was like, well, is this what you want to play? Are you happy playing this? Is it enjoyable? And I was just like, well, yeah. I mean, I like it. And he was just like, well, just do what you like. You don't stop setting yourself. This is what your project is supposed to sound like. Yeah. He was like, as soon as you say I'm a doom band, you have to be a doom band. He was like, so just record whatever you think is cool. Don't put a name on it, and just let it write itself. And so Christmas and stuff fell. Me and Joe, I stopped recording with them for a bit. I had to put the whole Dying Horse project on hold. And then I was fortunate enough to then have the time to then kind of start recording myself, because I hated having to wait a week to have to go back into the studio to then record the next bit. So I was like, well, what can I do? So I started recording at home, and that was kind of where it led us up to the beginning of 2023. And then I went through a long list of names of stuff that I wanted, that I thought they were going to be very kind of I wanted a name that was to capture the sound, that was dragged through a bloodstained basement, or, the art of tearing tongues, the hanging of swans. I had all these kind of titles which I kind of liked, and I couldn't decide on any of them. So so one night I just went to bed, and I just literally laid down and just thought, Antlers, and that was it. And then it was as quick as that, after spending a month or 2 months of just having lists in my phone of all different band names. I think even you yourself, I started thinking of a new project for doing a kind of a crazy mathcore one, and I came up with about 100 names for it, and I was like, I can't decide, because I'll just keep creating different ones, and that was it. And then I just started writing music, and then the first song that I wrote was one that was called The Sound of Her Cracked Ribs, and it was taken directly from a film that was about that was from the movie The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yeah, right.
From which is an absolutely phenomenal film about it's witches, it's dead bodies, it's the works. And that's actually also what inspired me to do the painting that I did behind me as well. So I wrote that, and that was a really good first draft at what then Antlers was then set to be. And then I kind of started then downloading more things and finding, well, how can I do this? And then once having the tools to come out, and then, bands came out like Shadow of Intent and Lorna Shore and stuff like that, around that kind of time, where they had these bigger symphonic elements to it. and I was just like, oh, I love the sound of that. And so that's when I started to think, well, I'd love to be part of that kind of project, so I could write the music for that, and if I could find, my own, Will Ramos or my own Ben Dua, like, you know what I mean? Like, if I could find somebody out there that could do it, and that's when the problems began. Really, like, and then going back to what we just said before, then all it was I was sat on about 6 or 7 songs and waiting for people to see what they were going to do with it or whatever, and then my wife had said just release them, and then that's what happened, and that's where we're up to today.
Love it. Honestly, it's really nice to once again be at the point of being able to have more keep for you. It's nice to get up to this point once again and to tell your story. No, you're good. It's been a pleasure this morning so far, being then able to tell the story of Antlers and its 2 albums, tell your story, and now with the final part of the show this morning, because we're at 41 minutes right now. I think that's a decent. Actually, no, I still have a couple questions to ask you, I guess, that are more like people or more personal. So the same way we did last time, I'm sure you remember that torturous schizophrenic session. What I want you to do is go ahead and, in reference to maybe 5 albums, 5 for each of your albums so far, if there are any inspirations whatsoever, or because we're at the tail end of 2025, either quote me your 10 favorite albums from this year, or 5 albums.
I'm gonna have to get my phone out there.
There we go. Bada bang. This guy was prepared.
I'll have to get the thing out. My Spotify Wrap this year, I listened to 3,300 new artists. Wow. I go on my Discover Weekly every single Monday and give every track a listen through, and then I put my playlist in order of all different genres, ranging everything from tavern music, stoner and doom, sludge death, modern black metal, midnight, which is like a gothy playlist, funeral doom, dungeon music, downtempo, death slam, chaos mathcore. I kind of put everything in it, and I'm one of these people where I do find it hard to listen to the same artists consecutively, whereas I'd rather listen to 10 artists in the same genre. I like to add to it. But there was definitely some standouts, ones that I was like, cool. My artist for this year, which is probably quite surprising, really, was actually a band called the Callous Cowboys. They're kind of a very progressive, like, mathcore. They like the first couple of albums take on from what Dillinger kind of was doing back in the day, but they have this very beautiful, like, pop element to it as well, where they give these very catchy hooks and catchy vocals, and Carson, the singer, does an absolutely phenomenal job of really mixing such melodic tones into just such chaos screaming. So they had a couple of albums out this year that I really loved. One was called Celebrity Therapist. The other one was like, I'll See You in Heaven.
Okay.
Absolutely phenomenal work with those. Inspiration-wise, though, for Antlers, what kind of stuff did I listen to? Worm Shepherd. I liked some. Like, I remember listening to. There was, I can't remember the song. It was something maybe, but there was just this whole section where he gives it that proper. It was so good. It wasn't ritual hymns. It was something. They did a thingy video for it as well. Obviously, Lorna Shore. They're the kings of the genre at the moment, as well as Shadows. My brain has gone dead. Shadow of Intent. It was like in shows, yeah. Instead of Shadow of Intent, they've had a couple of really, really good albums. Other stuff I listened to, that was kind of a big influence on it was Mental Cruelty. They were a band that I was really kind of like drawn more to. They kind of seemed to like really focus more on the blackened side of deathcore than the deathcore element of it. So they had these, I don't know who does their work, like the instrumental work and the composition stuff for them, but they were absolutely phenomenal. They released an album a couple of years ago called A Hill to Die On, that was just like, it was such a big influence for me. I even reached out to Lucas, the singer, at one point and was just like, would you be able to do something with me? But he was in two bands. He was doing Metal Cruelty and another band called Sun Eater. So, and he was like, oh, I'd love to, but I am really super busy, like, touring and all this kind of stuff. But he was like, oh, keep me in mind and keep asking. He was very, very nice about like the like, he didn't just kind of say, oh yeah, pay me $6,000 and I'll do it. Of course, like there's been stuff more recently. Disembodied Tyrant, have been, absolutely dominating the more technical side of it. That guy's guitar skills are crazy. Like it almost has a Renaissance feel to it that like, you can do like Vivaldi, like on the guitars and stuff. So that was, they were, I love listening to Disembodied Tyrant stuff. I also love the fact that there was no way that I could ever, like, when people say, oh, I take inspiration, I can't take inspiration like that. It's way, like, I'm here, like, level-wise, and this dude is, like, here. That'll be me, like, picking up a guitar going, oh, yeah, I've really been listening to a lot of Hungry Malmsteen lately, so I'm just going to write something like that. You can't. It's impossible. My fingers are too heavy and fat that, like, from pressing keys and hitting sticks that I can't, which is why my solos on all of my songs are very, very slow and very... because I can't do it. I wish I could, but like it, so I'd rather listen to it and appreciate it. Synestia, obviously, of Sulfur, like there's been a bunch of stuff that I kind of just like listen to and I go, oh, who's that? As well as like a bunch of, there's a bunch of modern black metal stuff. White Ward, I really like. They're like White Ward are this. Well, I think they're Canadian. They have this really crazy thing. Like they've got one of the songs which sounds like an '80s goth synth kind of thing, and then it just breaks into like unrelenting black metal. Dragged into Sunlight was one of my highlights of seeing this year. They were just an absolute. Like I saw them at a Damnation Festival in Manchester, and like it's one of those gigs where you walked away from and you just thought about it all night. Just like, and they're a band that was just like, this is the sound we make. You either like it or you don't. Like, and I get it. Like, it probably is very hard for some people to listen to. The same as there's a band that I was listening to for years that were called Spectre, and SPEKTR. And they're more of like an experimental band because you listen to half the shit and it honestly is really scary. Like they've got an album that's called Near Death Experiences. You play that shit in the dark, man, and you'll have to turn it off eventually. Like it's really fucking haunting. Like it's that they use all weird soundscapes and dripping noises, and then suddenly you'll get this weird little jazz thing coming, and then it will just blast like black metal, and then it just is so disturbing. Like in a great way that it has these. They really play with noise and sound and atmosphere and. So like I really liked what they did, and so with a lot of Antlers stuff that I do, when like there'll be sections where the song or guitars fade out and you'll just get these weird noises and like dronescapes and stuff. That's kind of where I've pulled that kind of stuff from. A lot of the orchestration I got from listening to Funeral Doom. There was one band in particular called The Howling Void. And the guy, it's a one-man project called Ryan, a guy called Ryan. He's an absolutely such a talented dude. I think he's a teacher in Texas somewhere, teaching English or something like that. But he's an absolutely phenomenal dude. Like he's got this one song that I could not stop listening to. It's called The Womb Beneath the World, and it's just. Like, if you want to talk about taking, it's a 21-minute long song, put it that way, for starters. But like, it's there's whole sections where you just close your eyes and you are just pulled into a galaxy of just serene darkness and cold. It's I can't explain. You just have to listen to The Howling Void. And he's one of these guys that, you know, I think he's been inspired by a bunch of stuff. Like he did one album that I think was something Ruined that was very Viking inspired, had a lot of more like the drums going on it. But that Womb Beneath the World album like is absolutely phenomenal, and it literally is like the feeling that you get from it is so kind of like dark. And this is the thing that like got me hooked on that kind of stuff, is the feeling that the songs kind of give you. And I hadn't had that until like I listened to a new band more recently that was called Achilles, and they were a black metal band, and they have the sound is very disturbing to hear. They're very kind of like it's almost like normally when you play guitar, like to go between the chords, you normally do like you play this one and this one, and you leave the middle one out, because if you move up just one, you take it into a different key. So instead of being like do 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 do, it'd be like do, and so they seem to use a lot of that in their songs to create this kind of sound, which is really disturbing and off-putting, because and that's what makes it sound really creepy. And they're super brutal. They're super brutal. I mean, like the thing, I could go on for a lot of stuff. There's a lot of influences and stuff that I like. I really like listening to the old the Batushka stuff. I know they've split now into Batushka and Patriarch, but like, you know, that kind of approaching songs with going, oh, we're going to be black metal, but we're going to sound like Gregorian monks, you know, and just only speak in ancient Russian Catholic languages that no one will understand. I'm like, right, okay, but it works, you know, it works. I mean, I can't even pronounce the name of the songs like on it because it's all in Russian. But even my Russian friends that I've shown, they were like, this is like a specific sort of old, archaic Russian. Like, it's not modern Russian. And I was like, right, okay. But that was like I said, I go use your Discover Weekly. Like, you know, it listens to what you listen to. Like it makes a whole list for you, and you know, listen to new bands all the time. Like I've got whole bunches of stuff from Brutality. I listen to a bunch of hardcore stuff. I listen to a bunch of metalcore stuff. I listen to anything, but my track is that like if it's a good song, it's a good song. If it's a good album, it's a good album. You know, like, and if that one album by that band you like isn't very good, or you didn't enjoy that one, well, there's a band that sound just like them, you know, over the road that might have the better album release that year. So don't be so constrained by the stuff that, you know, you want people to think you listen to. I don't know if you saw the rise in people editing their Spotify end of year Wrapped because they didn't want people to know the music they listen to because they think it wouldn't make them cool. I'm like, oh, don't be ashamed of that. I had Monster High in my top 5 of this year. They make some good music. Like, but that kind of stuff, and that's quite interesting to put a point on it, like where you can get inspiration from everywhere. So they made a Monster High, if you know what it is. Like it's like a Barbie kind of thing, but monsters. They did a film that was called Boo York, Boo York, and me and Loz have stuff on in the shop, and we watch the Monster High live stuff, and everyone seems to enjoy it because it's fun. And but we watched the animated film, and at the beginning of the film, this character called Catty Noir does a song that's called Search Inside. And I really, really thought the chorus line for that was really powerful. The chord progression, so like how I always did, I came home from work, I went upstairs, I tapped it on the piano and was like, oh, that's really lovely. I put like a different lead line and a different guitar and stuff over the top of it. And that tune ended up becoming a song called Foreverist, like, which is now on the album, which, you know, people like, oh, you know, the whole end section of that where it's this big grandioso finish that directly inspired from Monster High. So, you know, you can find inspiration anywhere as long as you're creative enough to do it and not afraid to go looking for the things you like, or tell people you like the things you like. Just be proud of the music you like.
Exactly. And the thing is too, as I'm getting older and older, and I'm continuing to build a platform, and I'm continuing to, in a way, become a tastemaker. That apparently at least 1,030 people, they like my tastes, or they like the way that I provide commentary, my perspective on certain music that I check out as more and more time goes by. I've become a tastemaker. The only thing that I'm missing is a fancy library, a campfire, a nicely fitted suit and tie, and then maybe a glass of wine. Just like today, we are listening to the new Antlers record. I hope you enjoy, sir. And just like jumping into it. That's why I want to get. That's the point I want to get to eventually, once I have more of a budget for it, just to kind of play into
Well, you want to be in a kimono with a glass of brandy.
Exactly, exactly. A kimono with a glass of brandy. That sounds so much more comfortable. Thank you, Alex. I would have made myself so uncomfortable. But
You'd have to do a thing though where you were like turned away and then you're like, good evening,
good evening.
with the little moustache, cravat and stuff on there.
Oh yeah.
Welcome.
Grand bonjour.
I can see that for you.
I can see.
You'd have to. Yeah.
But
nonetheless, you'd have to up the podcast though. It would have to be like a bloomed cast or flower cast. Not just a pod or a ceiling anymore, a full bloomed thing.
I mean, honestly, in the future for the show, one thing I really, really want to do, once I do acquire land, is have a side garage, and then very similar to how I have this room set up right now, just flags only with the bands that I've hosted on my show. The only exception is right here, because there's a flag for Lorna Shore, and that's behind my bed set thing. Other than that, the breathing process, Invirulent, Null Existence, the Archaic Arbidemic, more Invirulent right here. What is that? Oh, those are just tour posters, right? Body Snatcher is right here on the wall. The point is, I want the walls to be covered in flags and tapestries of bands that we've hosted. I want to get like VIP A2 posters and shit for bands that I've gotten to see live, some of them that I've also hosted on the show. And I just wanted to be like in an open garage where we also like record shit, and that will just be a demonstration and networking. But of course, for the main,
you want to get your Joe Rogan burgundy flag like curtains behind you and big neon sign up at the top. Yeah.
Or what would be even better? I was thinking of a neon sign, but I think what would be even better is like a custom ordered Lego set of like the Anatomy Crosscast logo, but it also has like plastic in it that is responded to like LED light. Or, I could just get a custom wrap with some LED light afterwards and have it be something even more intimate. Like imagine an anatomy, a live stream where we're just constructing the logo from Legos to put on the wall, to put on the backdrop or something, and then super glue all that shit.
This is the point. Like, I think genuinely that it comes to a point where every person who is a creative, such as yourself, and that it all starts off with a love and a passion. And then as soon as it becomes lucrative or there's money involved, it becomes a business. And people who start off as fans and then they go, here's my reviews of stuff, they then step away from being a fan and then they're just a critic. And I think it takes away that initial love that you have. So I think with like me, I'm always going to be a fan of music, and I'm always going to be like somebody that I can never take what I do and turn it into a business, because then it takes away the passion and the love for it. And I think so many creatives and YouTubers and stuff these days, they always start with such the most beautiful thing of like, I'm here to discuss this thing that I fully love, and and I'm in love with it as all of you, and that's why you connect on such a good level to people, because you are another fan who is talking to people about, genres and things that you both love. But as soon as you cross that pathway to be like, well, I'm important and I do this now and I'm not really part of you people anymore, I'm getting paid sponsorships and stuff like that. As like it's that feeling of then when you can like, you've seen a lot of influencers now that are complaining because they don't feel they're like connecting with the fans anymore. And I'm like, well, you're showing them $30,000 bags and going, which one do I pick today? That's not relatable. Whereas your first content was, what $2 store makeup thing should I use? It's relatable. And I think as long as any podcaster or any YouTuber or anyone like that stays a fan of or just remembers the reason they started doing it. If you happen to make money off it, that's great, but the shift should never go to just the money. Speak to the bands that you speak to because you like their music. Speak to the actors or whoever they are because you are interested in their creative process. The same way painters talk to each other or anyone does. And that's what I think will always keep the fans there, is because you're talking on behalf of them, not for them. You're asking the questions that they want to know. Not just you going, here's what I think about what you've done. And I think you have that really kind of down, where you talk to artists as a fan, and I think that if as long as you keep that kind of going, I think the podcast will do amazing. Already is doing amazing.
Yeah.
So
honestly, it's a slow and steady pace, but I think there's a sense of authenticity with that, as opposed to in the modern day, just some sort of rage bait post where I get a whole bunch of people pissed off at the show, and then it's like, oh yeah, but we're also getting engagement. Don't get me wrong, I plan to host more publicly recognized controversial artists and musicians, but only in the name of cancel culture and stuff, people who were kind of left behind earlier in the century.
Yeah.
Or not century, Jesus, not century, decade. Let me be clear on that. I haven't been around for that long. But I only plan to host them because I think that true counterculture, which is one of the many identities I plan to build upon for this show and my own channel, all of my channels, period, is a sense of, phantom transparency, authenticity, and if necessary, accountability. I want to get people on the show that most other podcasters wouldn't, because they're like, oh my God, what if I get negative views or something? I'm like, who fucking cares? You should jump into those opportunities, because maybe there are a couple people who want to see the other side of a rather hostile conversation. And maybe the people that were regarded as the enemy or the loser, the victors write history, that type of shit, What if you're talking to the underdog personality of that conversation instead? And that's actually going to be happening really, really soon. I'm not going to say who it is, but let's just say this show might be popping the hell off because of that session. But I want to make it very, very clear in what I do believe will be episode 116. I am not hosting this person for the clickbait. I am hosting this person because I think that they deserve an opportunity to speak for themselves upon events that happened, I think, 2 years ago now. And really, before these certain events happened, they were kind of recognized as the king of their local scene. So if that puts it into context, and if just food for thought for everybody who might be listening to this wonderful part 1, technically, but part 2, I'm excited to get this session recorded and return to a country that I have not interviewed a band or personality from since 2022. So it's been 3 years now. But thank you, Mr. Alex Frost, then, for telling your story as a musician, telling us about your many inspirations for both of these full-length albums. And now we get into the final part of the second try of the first date Crosscast with Antlers. We'll be right back. To a business, and the reason why is because I've noticed how much time it takes, and sometimes the time zone differences and the time zone jumps that all three of us sometimes have to do. Mostly me, but over time, as I'm trying to get Tony Slam and Finn the Orc King more involved, it's I'm realizing that it's going to take time at strange times. And that's one of the simpler ways to put it, really. But no matter what, it's I'm trying to make it to where this is more, this ends up taking up time in all of our schedules, but like there's an
More
incentive
residents
towards it.
than
Yeah,
anything.
exactly.
Yeah.
So right now, actually, ironically, this is something new that I'm doing to attempt to counteract the issues that we were having before. This is going to be the bloopers section. This is just
Yeah.
kind of like a filler conversation, just to make sure that we can hear
Bloopers.
both frickin' sides of the conversation. And that way, today, when we actually do start recording, it it doesn't go
It
into the
works.
ether. Yeah, it works exactly.
Oh man, my wife last time, because obviously we recorded on Valentine's Day last time, and we spoke for a long time. So my wife was like, "Oh, it was more my Valentine's Day," and then I told her again. I was like, "Oh, we're doing doing a recording again." She was like, "When for this time?" And I was like, "It's Christmas Eve." And she was like, "Are you kidding?" But luckily, she's at work today, so she's not getting back till like 6 tonight. So,
Okay.
and then we've got cheese board and crackers and stuff to have as a traditional it's just our thing that we just eat cheese on Christmas Eve. Like
There you go.
when you get into your like mid to late 30s, early 40s, cheese becomes a big part of your life.
You know what? Cheese is already a big part of my life. I love me some Irish coastal cheddar, especially incorporated into a breakfast recipe I do. It's called dirty eggs. It's soft scrambled eggs, sweet white onions, spinach, and Irish coastal cheddar. You kind of turn it into a buffalo dip consistency, and then you
Whoa.
can either put that in ramen. You can put that on one slice of very, very multigrain, like bougie-ass multigrain bread. The brand I found
Yeah.
seems to work best for it is called Dave's Killer Bread. So you toast that, you put some of this dirty egg on top of it, and then you can put like ricotta cheese and chili flakes on top of that. Oh my God. It is so
So
freaking...
do you turn it more into like a garnish then than an actual kind of like top? Is it more like, how you put like peanut butter on bread or something? Like it's more
Yeah.
like a topping rather than like a filler.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So nice and light on the old stomach then, which is a good
Yes.
and bad thing because it means you can eat a lot of it.
Yes. Honestly, the only spicy thing about it is the sweet white onions. I almost forgot too. You actually put a noticeable amount of cinnamon in the soft scrambled eggs when you're scrambling it.
I've seen this before, like cinnamon on onions and stuff, like caramelized onion stuff. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
super nice. Like, well, there are some people out there that literally eat onions like apples, like just like straight into it. So, I mean, let people live.
Honestly, it was a recipe that I ended up perfecting over the course of 2 years when I was working from home and I was doing upwards of 100 push-ups a day, 100 dumbbell curls a day.
Oh, you doing that that one punch man workout, like.
I mean, yes, for a little bit I did, and I mean, honestly, I wasn't as consistent as I was hoping to be, but for the times that I did do it, I'll tell you what, like I ended up building up most of the muscle mass that I have today, and then on top of that, with a
Yeah.
recipe like the dirty eggs recipe, which sometimes I would put on a single slice of bread, and then because we had a membership with Costco, they had this like really, really hearty, really thick oven roasted turkey. Sometimes I would put like 3 slices of turkey and the cheese was already in
Mhm.
the eggs. So I'd then turn that into a sandwich. Sometimes there would be a breakfast hoagie and I would just get a big old freaking coney bun. I would put a
Ooh.
applewood chicken sausage link in there, put the cheese in there, or put the dirty egg recipe in there, ricotta cheese, and then chili flakes on top. And it was a big old fucking breakfast, breakfast sausage. And then
That doesn't sound like that sounds like a breakfast challenge to me. That does. When you see people going and they go, "Oh, we're about to attempt this 3-pound sandwich." Shit, that's what that is. Like, I'm the most boring bit. My sandwiches are just 2 slices of normal flat bread and just some cheese in the middle. Like it's like I found out a lot because I used to do the same thing. I used to do a lot of driving with when I did guest spots tattooing, and I would find that I wanted to eat in the car, and a sandwich was almost like the base plate, and then I would go in and get like a Scotch egg and crisps and stuff like that, and then I would kind of mash them all together in one, like a bite of this, a bite of this, a bite of this. So I have like three different things that I like kind of converging. And it happened for a while, but unfortunately that made my face go from this to like this, like quite quickly. So,
I feel like I had to
so I had to cut that back. But this is the point of diets and lifestyles, isn't it? You know, when they try and teach you how to shift from the focus of, oh, I can have anything I want, to this is what I should have, and enjoy that. So
Yeah. And the thing is too, when I was, not consistently, not every day. I wish I was doing it every day. If I was doing it every day, I would look a lot bigger. I would look a lot more built right now, even 3 years later after the fact. But I remember transitioning between this dirty eggs recipe and, like, I kid you not, this would maybe take me 10 minutes because I would put the heat on high. I would put like maybe a little bit of cooking oil, if not butter, and I just like get everything together, just all pop, 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 and it's really,
that butter does make a difference, though.
yeah, it really does.
Very cool.
It was a recipe that you had to be like really intimate with because you didn't want the eggs to be too dry because then it would just be
Yeah.
like any other scrambled egg recipe. So I had to really work with it, and then half the time, especially as I threw more cinnamon into the recipe, I remember one time my buddy's mom came down because she thought I was baking because there was so much cinnamon in the egg. She's like, "Oh my
Right.
gosh, are you finally baking?" I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm
Felt
just
like a
doing my
dessert.
dirty eggs recipe." She's like, "Oh, I mean, that's cool." I was like, "Do you
That's
want to
cool. I
try
was
it?"
expecting some sort of ice cream, like fancy posh dessert, but instead you've got onions.
She thought I was making cinnamon rolls with how much frickin' cinnamon was in the air. Um,
I mean, has anyone tried putting onion in cinnamon rolls?
that sounds interesting. That sounds like it would be crunchy.
Crunchy. Yeah, crunchy and chewy, I think.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, like you get different bits and pieces. This year, I've in the last few months, because I had this whole kind of like thing going on where I was like trying to look my best, and because I was like, the wedding's coming up, I don't want to be look like overly thing. So I thought, oh, I need to go to the gym every day and work out, work out, work out. And I kind of interestingly had a bit of the opposite effect of what I wanted, because instead of going to the gym with a look to, oh, I want to do this, I just ended up chasing numbers. So I was like, well, I bench pressed 70 last week, so this week I'll do 80, and then the next week it was 90, and then stuff like that. But as in doing so, you need to eat more and then get bigger. So I got to the point in July this year where I was benching 140 kilograms, uh, and or 140, 150. I was like, I was pulling 200 kilogram deadlifts, and I was a bit of a mess. Like, even though I was in training every hard and eating well every day, I blew up to a size, and then walking up the stairs ended up being a bit like tough for me because I was like, I can't really breathe. But it's because I was, I put on like maybe 30, 40 pounds like of heavier, which I was just in turn going, oh, this is a good thing. So
Yeah.
I had to really cut back and stop doing it, and then relinquish that kind of man mentality of just going, yeah, well, I can lift this big number, like, and just go, well, I can consistently do this number. So I've tried to bring it back down a lot. So by the time that came around to the wedding, I could fit into just like a normal medium large kind of thing, but I got up to like an XL, double XL, where the XL start to get like real tight. But this is British XLs. This is not like the American XL. Like, so like, but it just really showed me it like that I even thought that even if you do something which is what is considered healthy and right, you can still do it the wrong way. Like, there's people that get obsessed with this stuff. They inject, they do all this stuff, and it's all to look good. But it's that you still get these bodybuilders that look in phenomenal shape, but they're dead before they're 30. It's
Yeah. And the thing is, what I'm understanding is I continue to try to get into the shape, and I call it the Rolo build, themed off of Rolo
yeah,
from Vikings. It's like I'm trying to embrace my more northern roots and the fact that I'm convinced I was reincarnated out of punishment here in the desert, one of the hottest desert territories or state territories in the United States. But like without putting too much context in there, I was built to survive up north
Yeah.
for extended periods of time without multiple layers on. Like Robin Williams would probably be just like, holy shit, rest in peace. But as
Mm.
I'm continuing to attempt to embrace that physical build and basically just the hairiness, now on top of that, it's like I'm trying to make sure that because of my size and my stature, that I also fill out
Mm.
as much as possible muscle wise. But after Tennessee and after living over in Tennessee for that year back in 2022, I ended up adding so much more fat to compared to muscle ratio, and then coming back to
Yeah.
Arizona, man, it's like it's been so hard to melt off that excess fat that I don't need, that I'm actually miserable with most of the year, even during these colder months. So it's like that's the main goal, is to get rid of that. And what's really nice is that pretty soon here, as soon as I get the verification done for it, I'm starting a new YouTube channel called Asahi and Nomichi, which translates to Path to the Rising Sun, based off of a
No.
Spotify playlist that I compiled back in 2021 that acts as a time capsule from 2014 all the way up until now. This is all the anime that I've seen from that time, and it's in chronological order too, or at least it was when I first made it. I need to readjust it and reorganize it to where it is in chronological order of every show that I watched from 2014 to 2025, starting with Soul Eater, and most recently, I'm working on Spy Family Season 3, and I mean, technically, we finished One Piece until April of next year with their new
The
season
little
arrangement.
the little girl's amazing in that.
Yes, oh yeah, Anya is freaking awesome, and I've really been enjoying season 3 so far. Made my jaw
Yeah.
drop though with one of the scenes, because it really reminded me of some of the epidemics and the issues that we're having in modern day society. But
Yeah.
with this playlist,
Doesn't the animation style in that though remind you more of the anime that you saw coming out of the late 80s rather than like more of the modern style ones? It took me back to watching things more like the original Guyver or like Ninja Scroll or Fist of the North Star or that kind of era of animation rather than this new kind of Baku Demon Hunter kind of
yeah,
style.
you know what? I think I'm with you on that. For me, the Spy Family animation style alone, it compares to that of shows like Ranking of Kings, Frieren,
Mhm.
and those more colorful, pardon me, more colorful, more bubbly animation styles and design styles. And it's like a comfort show to me, really, because it's not too dark.
Yeah.
It's not too messed up compared to the other shows I've enjoyed over the years. But the point is, with the Asahi and Omichi, I'm planning a workout routine ambition project where for every $10 that someone decides to donate, for every episode of every season of every show that I've ever watched up until now, which technically there are 39 shows that I've finished, and they're not continuing again. They're never going to continue until there's like,
No.
Soul Eater's coming back. Um, until that point, I've had 39 shows already that I've finished. And it's like for every episode of every season and of those shows, um, if people are willing to participate one time and spend $10, um, that will potentially help me pay off my debt. It'll help me get my driver's license reinstated, get some tickets paid
Mhm.
off, and in that process, I'm going to be doing workout compilations for every episode that I've seen of every season of every show that I've watched. It will be 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, 10 curls, or 10 curl-ups, 10 dumbbell curls, right? Um,
Yeah.
a minute,
Motivation.
yeah, a minute worth of planks and a mile worth of jogging for every single episode. And the idea is this channel will also only have Japanese commentary because I've been learning Japanese for maybe 2.5 years now, three, going on three. And it's going to be a Japanese only commentary channel, but there's going to be Asahi and Omichi Soul Eater edition, and you'll see compilations and edits of footage from each of the episodes, some original lo-fi themed off of that show, and then this workout routine happening in real time. For example, for Soul Eater, I think it was like 64 episodes in whole, or 54 episodes in one season. So potentially $540 worth of commission, worth of the world saying, hey, we want to see you do this. And then that could help me pay rent. That could help me get a whole bunch of things figured out. So imagine Asahi Inomichi Sword Art Online Edition or Demon Slayer Edition, etc. And the goal, the hope is for anime to change my life forever, because I'm going to get into the best shape possible through people's commission and get a whole bunch of life things figured out. But I wanted to mention that in reference to the, work.
It's a great thing as well, because kind of what you were saying about when you lived back in Tennessee, I think the geographic also plays a big difference. If if you live in an area where everybody's big, then you'll never really kind of take into consideration like how big you are, because you can always compare it to the guy that's bigger. And with the Japanese link stuff, I mean, those people are so well with their portion sizes and food groups, like, that you can't go into a pizza shop and buy a whole pizza. You buy a slice or two and that's it, because that's your daily portion. And they're raised like that from kids, and they know not to overconsume, and they little and stuff like that, which is why predominantly I think you really rarely get obese Asian like people that I've rarely seen, apart from obviously sumo wrestlers and stuff like that. But they, all the things I've ever seen, they make the most delicious food, they have the most amazing desserts, but they also have the discipline to just say, I'll have a piece. Like not whereas then I've seen tourists go over and be like, I'm trying this Japanese cheesecake, and they sit in the car and eat the whole fucking thing. Like, like you're only supposed to have the slice, man.
Right. So I think that what you're mentioning too might also be another mechanic that plays into Asahi Inomichi that I will be curious to indulge into, because I don't think I'm going to have the money anytime soon through normal jobs to travel over to Japan, but I've always been meaning to. So another bigger goal.
We might be going this year.
Oh yeah.
But it's our honeymoon location.
Okay.
But we have a 17-year-old pug who's snoring down here, and we can't really leave him at the moment because we want to go for like 2-3 weeks. So we're kind of having to wait. It's sad. It's not sad. His back legs are slowly going out, and so we've kind of decided that once he can't stand up anymore, it's time for him to go. But he has had the most amazing life. I mean, he's a pug. He was 17 in October. He's lived in 5 different countries. He's been at the top of the Tyrolean Alps. He's an amazing thing. Oh, look.
And now you see the Eldritch. My goodness me. Hello, guy. Hello.
Yeah, this is him. This beast.
It's awesome.
So we kind of decided that we're just going to stay with him, and then when he finally passes, for whatever reason, I don't think it's going to be health, because his health is fine, it's just his back legs, then we will be able to go off in a way, which I think will be a nice almost like distraction as well, like from it as well. So, but we were kind of deciding everything, and we thought Japan's just one of those places, especially for us, that it's not like a regular thing where people kind of go to. It's like a 24-hour flight from us. So we were like, if you're going to go once in a lifetime, it might as well be for our honeymoon, because we're never going to go back there again, I think.
Yeah, and not
so that's why we want to spend 2-3 weeks out there.
Yeah, not only that, but it seems to be really affordable to do so right now, as long as you're not messing around in Kyoto and I think harassing the gaishu. I think a lot of tourists were doing that some time ago, and they got kicked out. They're like, no tourist ever here anymore in this gaishu district, which like the gaishu is in.
Well, then you like president or somebody like Lauren was telling me wants to like ban all foreigners from Japan, because she was just like, it's just not worth it. They've got such good infrastructure and such good like internal money making things. They don't need tourism money. Unlike where I used to live in Austria,
Right.
the whole country is based off the tourism aspect that comes in and all the people that bring the money into the country.
Right.
But Japan, because they essentially are so far ahead technologically and stuff like that, they just don't need like that kind of money. So they could actually afford to say, right, no more, unless you're here for business purposes, then clear
Honestly,
off.
I think what's going on right now is that because they just invested $1 trillion into at least the U.S. economy, it's highly encouraged that people from the U.S. as well as touristy people or people that just want to visit for a little bit, they are
Yeah.
welcomed over because the round trip flight, I think, from U.S. to Japan is only about $1,300, which, like all things considered, is dirt cheap. And then, quote, it's cheaper to fly over to Japan and go to Disneyland in Tokyo than it is to go to Florida to go to Disney World. Like that's what I've been hearing recently, which that's a big claim. That is a big claim. If it's cheaper to fly to a different country and go to their version of Disneyland, as opposed to, for example, for me, flying to Arizona to Florida and going to Disney World,
Yeah.
that's really bad. But that just
We had
is an opportunity.
we had something similar here. We compared prices. It was cheaper to get a flight from London to Barcelona and then Barcelona to Edinburgh than it was to get the train from London to Edinburgh. So you could literally like fly to Spain for the day. It was like £19, which is like $25 like that. And then the flight then from Barcelona to Edinburgh was was like another $20 or like was another £20 like per person on like a Ryanair flight. So it was like £40, but on the train to get from London to Edinburgh it was like 240 quid.
What the heck?
So it was like it's mad, but obviously people like you just do it because that's what it is. But the train prices went up so high that and all the flights went really low. But if you took any flights internally, it was the same amount. But if you took a flight abroad to Amsterdam or somewhere else and then flew back, you'd get it for like 20 to £30. So
That's crazy.
it's just being bothered to do it.
Huh. All right. Well, I do believe that that was a good amount of time for the bloopers section, just talking about, well, Asahi and Omichi, talking about a whole bunch of different stuff. And we are back for actually part 3, officially part 3. Technically, we did the 2 prior parts in the opposite order, but really, I just wanted to let Alex take the reins as opposed to the first conversation where I'm like, we're talking about this, then this, then this, period. Like, we gotta stick to the schedule. This time, chances are the session is going to be a lot shorter than last time, too. If I could remember, it was like, god damn it, like
5 hours last time.
It was a long one, man.
Yeah. Which I kind of missed in a way because you had like such an epic like Bigfoot like tale that like people aren't going to hear, but like stayed with me that whole thing. So
I mean, honestly, the beautiful thing about it is because stuff like that, events like that stick with you. There have been plenty of occasions afterwards where I ended up recalling and talking about that because something you mentioned in the prior part that I think will, of course, before we get into under the skin of both of these albums, one thing I wanted to mention is that if you don't already know about this, in the future, the intention of every person, every personality, every band, and its respective members that we've hosted on this show, in the future, our intention will actually be to use the connections of this show to go to countries where these people live, where these people reside, and go with them, take them with us, skeptics and full-on believers, and go to paranormal hotspots in their local area.
wow.
I think that this, once we have the resources to do it, or maybe once we have a contract through Discovery or Travel Channel, which I do believe now it's Discovery. Warner Brothers bought Discovery, so it's Discovery Warner, and then Netflix just bought Warner Brothers. So, goddamn, like a lot of rich people moves recently, a lot of monopoly and chess moves. But nonetheless, maybe one day we'll be doing a paranormal investigation program through Netflix. Then we'll just see how that goes. But the intention will be to utilize the Anatomy Crosscast and its connections to go to different countries around the world and do some paranormal investigations. So hopefully we can get you involved in that, Mr. Frost. Maybe you and your Smithy, if you guys are interested in that. But until further notice, we'll go ahead and put a pin in that conversation. But just like we did last time, but without the front-to-back session, which would have taken even longer to get done, tonight, Jesus, I guess it's still dark for me. But it's only dark because the curtains are closed.
It's 3 in the afternoon. To be fair, I don't know why it looks like heaven out that window. Why it's grey and miserable as fuck. Like it just looks like there's just I'm in some sort of weird ether from this window.
But it did last time too. Let's be real. And I think we were recording at roughly the same time, so it's like it's always ether time for Mr. Alex Frost.
Yeah, just like I live in the middle of nowhere. Like you can think of this as snow. I don't know. I guess
honestly, too. Like I see how bright that window is, and it takes me back to earlier this year when, rest in peace, my buddy's father passed away. But like I ended up having a dream about visiting the house that he used to live in, and it looked exactly like that outside of all the windows of the house that his mom, my buddy's mom, still lives in now. And apparently my buddy and his wife are living with Buddy's mom to like keep her company because she's going to be mourning for a little bit. But I remember having a dream about all of us being in the living room, but all the windows were like whited out the same way as that. I'm like, man, Alex Frost.
Yeah.
I'm really on call with someone in the afterlife. It looks like, but
yeah, like just when I turn around, it doesn't look like that. Like, so just enjoy the fact that there's this weird light source coming from there.
Honestly,
what's the
yeah, you're good.
I was gonna say, what's this fabulous third part about then?
Oh yes, so fabulous third part. This will be for Under the Skin of both of the records in 2025, and then we'll have like a couple of questions afterwards. But the intention this time will be to take as little time as possible, provide a summary and your own interpretation of your musical compositions throughout these two records, and then we'll do the concluding questionnaire. So hopefully this won't take too much. Hopefully this won't take too long, but only 2 questions left.
Yeah.
Only 2 questions left. So,
True.
Did you end up...
Not talked enough.
Did you end up enjoying... No, you're good. Did you end up enjoying your experience here on the Anatomy Crosscast, and what do you think we could do better in the future?
It's not really a case of what you can do better. It's more of a case of what not to do. And like I said to you before, just don't start if you start interviewing big bands and really big names and stuff like that, don't ever think of yourself as being better than, or I'm the more important person in this conversation. Always remain a fan and always remain true to being a fan. And we as fans and creators will always listen to a fan interviewing the stuff we want. As soon as we are listening to a lecturer giving us their
being condescending,
sodomized view of what they believe, it becomes unrelatable. So I think with that, and that's what's going so well for you, is that you're enjoyable to listen to because you let the artist talk, and then what you it's the way that you talk about yourself is from a very real place. You talk about personal experiences and your own personal life stories, and this is what we as fans and listeners, this is what we enjoy listening to. Because we listen, we relate. When you fell over off the toilet when you were drunk, we've all done that similar kind of thing. But as soon as you switch that scenario to, I'm going to be a journalistic person, and I'm just going to give you my rundown and critique of this album or this thing, you're not a fan anymore, are you? I could give an album to some sort of famous journalist, do you know what I mean? And they can give me their critique on it, but that's just their fucking opinion. And it could be my favorite album in the world and they'll think it's dog shit. But as long as you like just stay true to the fact that there's people out there creating music and working their ass off to provide entertainment and things. And like I said, you never know if that song that you've made will be the song that somebody requests to have at their funeral or their wedding, because it becomes so important to them. Always stay true as a fan and don't ever get too big for your boots.
Understood.
And that really, that explains my experience here as well. Like chatting with you, you've really given me a chance to talk too much, to be fair.
Wonderful.
It's like I never do interviews. I've never done a podcast before. I've never done anything like this. I'm really kind of like there's no pictures of me online anywhere. So this is a very striking thing. But I've broken my face reveal for you.
And technically now you've done your second podcast all at the same time.
Yeah, technically. Well, I'm less nervous this time around, though, if you remember.
Yeah. But in that case, I do appreciate your positive critique, sir. My final question will be regards to the future, right? And what I like to do these days with every single Anatomy Crosscast session that we do is, slingshot. That's the term, that's the dialogue, the language I've been using. What I mean by that, who would you want to see on the Anatomy Crosscast here in the near future, whether local to you or somewhere around the world, and why? Why would you want to see this artist or band on the show?
I would love to see and hear a more in-depth analysis from Between the Buried and Me. They're a band that I love so much. Like their newest album, which is I think it's the Blue Deep or something like that. It is like going to a painting class and watching a master work. Every song is so technically chaotic and so beautifully written, and kind of like sort of the Immortal, how it shifts from one, the songs are 10 minutes long and then it shifts from one genre to another and it bends in different ways. Those guys are probably the best musicians working today, apart from people like Tobin Abassi and Animals leaders and those kind of stuff, which are absolutely fantastic. But Between the Buried and Me, I think they're all Juilliard fully trained musicians. Then it's not just like a local band that got together. So to hear their stories and how they got together at the School of Music and how that they've gone from such a pivotal album like Alaska, back in 2003 at that height of deathcore, where they would suddenly then add that kind of element of death metal and then suddenly broken into jazz. To make that brave, bold, and that creative move to do that, because they're like, hey, we can play death metal, but we can also play jazz. That kind of, they're such an interesting band, and I'd love to delve into that artistic and creative mind that they would get into. And the same thing I would say about the Callous Cowboys. There's such an interesting band. And I mean that both to watch, to listen to. You listen to their album Die on Mars, which I guess is a play on Life on Mars, and they've got typical songs like Flip Flops at a Funeral and all these kind of crazy song titles, which was so kind of reminded me of Dillinger's Calculating Infinity, where you get songs like Weekend Sex Change or Sunshine the Werewolf and these kind of things. It plays off of that, but their creative and writing process is absolutely mad. You listen to they've got a song, it's called the Pink Envelope or something like that, and just listen to that song through. It changes from 8-bit gaming stuff to the most heaviest fucking beatdown breakdown bit to the most kind of old school converged discorded heavy shit. Absolutely phenomenal band. A really great band. I don't know where they're based. I think they're American.
I think they're in the States, Midwest.
Something like that, but they're really, really, really good band. And I've been keeping an eye on them for the last couple of years, and they're a band that I was like, this band's going to be huge. Once they kick off, they're going to be really, really big. And they've had really good success with the song of theirs called Two-Headed Trout, which is such a fucking catchy. But what makes me respect that is is that the Callous Cowboys are still out there making like old school music videos. They still go into like the full length to make like a video to watch that's like a mini film. It's not just like, oh, here's us playing in front of a waterfall or something like that. They're actually giving you like a full movie, like mini movie to watch that then breaks into the songs are in it. And it's I haven't seen that since the MTV era kind of days. So they're very artistic, and I think that's just what I would find interesting to listen to, is just to hear like not a guitarist or something just talking about I really like this band and I like this. I'd like to hear how the creatives come up with the ideas and how they take an idea and flourish it and nurture it and let it bloom into something and their process behind that.
Oh yeah.
Like I think anyone could talk about playing the drums, but talking about the feeling of how you get to like when you're playing the drums, to me is more like is more interesting.
Right. So then recommended to the Anatomy Crosscast would be some of the world's most experimental, most strange swancore, math rock bands, metalcore bands, some of the people that were there at the very beginning, between the Buried and Me and the Callous Cowboys. Names that I've definitely heard over the years that are somehow in the same category as I Wrestled a Bear Once and See You Space Cowboy. Just very, very strange, almost like bipolar takes on metalcore, deathcore, and just alternative music in general. So I will take
if you wanted someone a bit like me, there's a guy that's his project is just called The Sound That Ends Creation. I can't explain it to you. Like it's grindcore meets insanity. It is the most technically crazy, and it's absolutely wild. He's got videos on YouTube of him playing, and he's like this on the guitar while screaming his guts out. But like the time signatures and stuff that he does in that is absolutely insane. But especially a big shout out and respect to him for being a one-man project that's out there. He's got like 5 albums out. All the songs are absolutely crazy. It's the only way to describe him. Like he's got a song called "An Apple a Day You'll Die Anyway." And all of his song titles have these really long, like funny things, like that all kind of go with it. But yeah, The Sound That Ends Creation. I just have this kind of like thing in my brain where like I get really interested in the way that people write and how people kind of come up with things, and like especially how do you write crazy? And I think that's why I'm kind of obsessed with it, because like I can't do it. Everything that I write has to be so kind of like neat and cohesive that like to write something that just goes, do you know what I mean? I'm like, that's like, how do you do that? Like,
he's like, I at least have to bump a nose of one line to maybe be capable of writing something like that, and that's a big no-no. My wife will get really mad at me if I bump a line. So I'll just leave it to the Callous Cowboys and Between the Buried and Me. Wonderful. Okay.
If you can ever get them dragged into sunlight, but I don't think that'll be possible. They are very reclusive people.
Well, I mean, we can always try. So Between the Buried and Me, the Callous Cowboys, The Sound That Ended Creation, and Drowned in Sunlight. Right?
Dragged into Sunlight.
Dragged into Sunlight. Okay. Yeah. So we got 4 very strange bands that I have no idea about as far as their discography, but I do believe that will be the end of the second try and the successful take of the first day's Crosscast session with Alex Frost of Antlers. Thank you to everyone who happens to listen to this session whenever you do. Like I said, somewhere randomly, I think during part 1, which was technically part 2, but I'm editing it as part 1, get over it. The plan, I think, will be for this session to be 116, or episode 116, broken into 3 parts. And really, I'm going to have to do a poll on it.
Special.
Yeah. I'm going to have to do a poll on it to get you guys' opinion, because I literally don't know what to do with the Under the Skin sessions anymore. It doesn't, like, I don't know. I need to figure out a new home for them, and then possibly an incentive for you guys to actually start participating in the Crosscore Patreon That way, maybe one day soon, I can make this my living, like how I make a living, and not even just for the money part, but for the time consumption part. I want this to be something that I can do all the time, because this is the more homework part of the process, but that isn't to say that this isn't something I enjoy. This is just a more serious businessy part of the whole like music journalist thing. So let's get it figured out, people. Let's continue to evolve the Anatomy Crosscast. Thank you, Alex, for jumping on once again. This will be the session that releases, for goodness sake.
Hey!
And, yeah, I look forward to getting this out. Thank you for everyone. And it's now 10 a.m. sharp, so I think we need to conclude now because that's more than 4 hours. And we will see you guys.
Thank you very much, George.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you to all the little avalanches. Keep supporting real music.
Later, guys.